when it comes right down to it, I like to build things. I started building things with the computer through code when I was in my 20s, and I just loved that. It progressed into doing things more visually on the computer, building user interfaces, and then building websites. And from there I wanted to edit video, create video, because then it was moving pictures, not just still things on the computer. And then I painted a little bit. When I was making my last documentary that took 5 years, I told myself I had to stop painting because it was taking time away from making the video. So I said no more painting until I finished the documentary. But then as I got near the end, I thought I got drawn to pottery and thought, well, making something three-dimensional with my hands would be even more creative, more exciting, more rewarding than painting. As you go and you use your hands in different ways to make the shape that you want to make, it's a very sort of fluid feeling. It's really fun, but then you always are at the edge because you know you could go too far and it could collapse, or you could do something and totally destroy the shape you're trying to make. So you're kind of always living on the edge of trying to create what you want without going too far. So the first thing is you start with a big block of clay and you cut the piece off, and we go by weight. Like we know a small cup is 1 pound, a tall vase is 2 pounds of clay. You take that block of that rectangle and you, with your hands, make it in a ball. And you throw it down on the wheel and you add water to this ball, and then you use your hands and it takes some strength to squeeze it together in what's called coning up, and then you cone it down, and then you do that a couple of times to get it centered, and it also helps align the little particles in the clay when you cone up and you cone down, and that makes the piece stronger if you get them to align. You get it into the perfect round piece that you want, and the shape of that round piece is different for whether you're going to throw a bowl or a vase or a cup. You open it up by sticking your thumb in the middle, making a hole, pulling it out, and then it gets to a shape where you have thick walls, and then you do what's called pulling, where you have a hand on the inside, a hand on the outside, and you pull up, and you might, depending on how much clay, how big your piece is, you might pull up 2 or 3 times. Once you have it up in the cylinder, then you shape it. You scrape the what's called the slip, which is the clay and water mixed together. It's pretty thin. That's your piece. It's done. You cut it off the wheel, then you move it to your board, and then it dries. Once it's dried to what's called leather hard, then you put it back on the wheel upside down and you trim the bottom to create a foot if you want to create a foot, or just a flat bottom if you want a flat bottom. You take that and you put it on the rack to dry, and it has to dry for days. It gets fired, and when it comes out of the kiln, it's much lighter in color and it's very hard, and it's called bisqueware at that point. So when it comes out as bisqueware, you glaze it, it dries right away, and then it gets fired again in the kiln, and then it comes out and has whatever colors that you've picked, and you have your finished piece. I think in a year from now, I hope I'll have even more control over the medium, and so when I have an intention to make a certain piece, I'll be able to do that and stick with that. Hopefully get a little more adventurous, like I really want to make a teapot, and that's pretty challenging, but I think it's in my future to make a teapot. Probably a small one to start with. I give my pieces away to my friends, and that's the most rewarding, when I give it to somebody and they're like, "You made that?" And then they tell me after I've given it to them, "I use that cup all the time," and I love hearing that from other people.